Hey everybody, it's Jason Blaha with Ice Cream Fitness here. I just got back from the gym and it's time for the Monday Q&As. But hold on, let me give you guys a bicep shot first. Alright, first question. For people that respond to creatine, would there be any reason to use 10 grams over the recommended 5 grams? The answer there is no, absolutely not. There's no data that I'm aware of, and if people want to prove me wrong, they can go look it up themselves and try to prove me wrong. But as far as I know, there's no data that taking more than 5 grams of creatine a day would offer any advantage. You're just going to break it down or excrete the surplus. You're probably just going to break it down for the amino acids. So taking 10 grams instead of 5 would basically give you another 5 grams of protein in your diet. So there doesn't seem to be any real benefit to it. And in fact, for people who eat large amounts of red meat, there might not even be any benefit to the 5 grams at all because you get enough in your diet. But as far as the supplementation, 5 grams seems to be the magic number. There's no benefit to going over that. Alright, next question. Is there any negatives to overhead pressing without a punch grip and having wrists bent back? No, not only is there no negatives, I think that's the proper way to do a military press. And the reason for that is because I do that myself. I use like a catch grip back here when I do the military press, and I keep the elbows in tight. And the thing is, when you do that, you can get a deeper stretch and a fuller range of motion at the bottom with less stress on the rotator cuffs, because that punch grip really puts stress on the rotator cuffs when you try to go low enough. And if you do it the other way, you can touch your chest, you can get a better range of motion and a deeper stretch without putting as much rotational force and shearing force on the rotator cuffs. So it actually makes it a more effective exercise, and you'll generally be a little stronger that way. You're going to be able to get a little more power behind it. So that really is the way that I would recommend doing it, is the way that you're asking if there's any negative. I would not grip a military press with a normal tight punch grip like you would on a bench press. Alright, next question. What are your thoughts on vegetarian bodybuilders in terms of nutrition requirements and possible deficiencies? I'm going to assume you mean vegetarian and not vegan, because vegan diets, it is very, very difficult to meet your bodybuilding goals or your goals as a strength athlete if you're a vegan, but it's not impossible, it's just very, very difficult. As far as being a vegetarian, there are no real issues. All you're doing is basically excluding meat from your diet. And there's nothing in the meat that you really can't get from dairy, eggs, and other food sources. So there's not really an issue there, as long as you're hitting the same numbers that you would if you ate meat while not eating meat, and getting the same basic nutrition and just filling that role with other foods. You're not going to have any problems at all. You're not likely to see any deficiencies or have problems. But I will stress that I am very pro eating meat for strength athletes, bodybuilders, and other people. There are huge benefits to eating large amounts of meat, and even for weight loss. And I'm not one of these people who think that the vegetarian diet is more healthy. The evidence doesn't really support that. But there are also no real negatives to it either. So if that's the choice that you choose to make for your personal reasons, it shouldn't hinder your gains as long as you're getting your protein and fats from other sources. Alright, next question. Is there such a thing as carb sensitive? Explain, please. No, there isn't. There's not. There's insulin insensitivity, and that's what people usually mean, but that's correctable with lifestyle choices, training, and other things. And other people who actually have built up a good training tolerance, their fasting glucose and everything is good, so they don't have any real insulin insensitivity issues. When they talk about having problems with carbs and being carb sensitive, they're basically just crazy. This is a completely made-up term. It has no real meaning outside of people just using another term for insulin insensitive. And so if you don't have those problems, your fasted glucose is good on tests, means you handle carbs normally, there's no problem. And all these people who think that for them personally carbs are more fattening, or they don't tolerate carbs well because they're carb sensitive, these people have either been completely misled by kooks or they're crazy. There is really actually no such thing. Alright, next question. Is there a limit on how much fat someone can gain in a day, week, month? All right, this is kind of a tricky question because you would actually, to hit the limits of the amount of body fat you could gain per day, you would actually have to actively try to do so. Now, as far as caloric absorption of the GI tract, your limit is about 15,000 calories a day. And anything you consume over that per 24 hours, you're probably going to excrete it unabsorbed. You're going to digest it and everything, and it's still going to come out as stool, but you're not going to absorb the calories beyond that. So that seems to be your upper limit. So let's say your maintenance is 3,000, that gives you 12,000 surplus calories. Now, if all of those are coming from dietary fat has almost no thermic effect in the body. The body doesn't really need to expend calories or use any energy or even have insulin or any other hormone to just store it directly as body fat. So that surplus is going to go all as body fat. So if you, in the most extreme case, that's going to be approximately 3, maybe a little more pounds of fat per day that you could actually gain on that type of diet if you were to be consuming, say, a 90% fat diet at 15,000 calories. And it wouldn't matter if you go over that because you're not going to absorb anything beyond that. But if you're eating a more mixed diet, it's really harder to hit those numbers because a single day of carb overfeeding very rarely stores much, if any, of the carbs as dietary fat. It can happen over several days, but in one, you're only going to gain an ounce or so of fat at the most, even from a gigantic carb overfeed. Now, it's going to mean you're going to burn through that glycogen over the next few days that you stored from the supercompensation. So you're not going to be burning fat, so it can stall potentially some fat loss efforts for a couple days, but you're not going to gain much from fat from that. And it's the same with protein because it has to undergo a couple of steps to get converted into body fat. And the thing is, both of those have a thermic effect that gets used up, and when you eat large amounts of them, a large amount of it gets burned off as thermic effect from calories. So if you're eating a relatively low-fat diet and you just way overfeed on carbs and protein, instead of way overfeeding on fat, I'm going to say at the very most, you're not going to gain more than half a pound to a pound of fat in a single day, and even that would be very extreme. So I'm going to say that at the most, on a mixed diet that's not particularly high in fat, just ultra high in calories, you're not going to gain more than about 30 pounds of fat per month. But if you were to do it with ultra high fat overfeeding, you could hypothetically gain 90 or close to 100 pounds of body fat in a single month if you really were trying to do so. And then obviously it's going to take you many months to burn that off. All right, last question. What is the meaning of life? To crush your enemies, see them driven before you, and hear the lamentation of their women. All right, guys, that's really all I have to say on that today. I hope it's been informative, and I will talk to you next time.